Welcome to Keep It Electric with Tremayne Person, episode 56. Today we're recording on Friday, September 27th, and folks, there's quite a bit to unpack as we approach the end of the Seattle Mariners season. If you're a Mariners fan like me, you already know this hasn't been the most satisfying year. The high expectations we had coming in feel like they've been left in the dust, and that's going to be a major theme in today's episode. Here's what we're diving into. We've got to talk about the Houston Astros because how can we not? They've been a thorn in our side for years, and this season was no different. We're also going to get into Julio Rodriguez. Plus, we've got Jorge Polanco on the docket. He's been heating up lately, but is it a case of too little too late? There's definitely frustration there, and we'll definitely talk about it. We'll also discuss what's next for the podcast now that we know the Mariners' fate. For those of you who have been with me all season, I want to take a moment to say thank you. It's been an incredible experience producing more content and being along for the ride with all of you. As we get ready to head into the off-season, there's still plenty to talk about, and I'm excited to share what's in store for Keep It Electric. But first, I really need to give you a heads up right now. This isn't going to be the most positive episode, and honestly, I think that is understandable. There's frustration, there's disappointment, and there's a lot to unpack about this franchise as a whole. It would be disingenuous to sit here and act like the season hasn't been a letdown, and when we came into 2024, we had high hopes. We thought that this was the year we were going to see a serious playoff push, maybe even possibly a deep run. But now, as we face the end of the season, we're left wondering what went wrong and how we ended up here. We're staring at a missed opportunity once again, so buckle up. We've got a lot to get into today, and while it may not be the most uplifting episode, it's an important one. So let's break it down, and let's look ahead and see what's next for the Mariners. Thanks for joining me on Keep It Electric. Let's jump in. Another season in the books, and once again, we're left wondering what the hell just happened. The Houston Astros, that's what happened. The Astros, they started off rough. They stormed back and finished strong as they always seem to do. Meanwhile, the Mariners, well, it seems like we've seen this movie before, only the ending is getting harder and harder to stomach. We started the season strong, had our moments, and as the finish line came into view, we were pushing for that final postseason spot, but at this point, it's too little, too late. For 3 straight seasons, the Mariners have had this knack for turning it on late, giving us hope as they charge toward a postseason berth. They've only been successful 1 out of those 3 times. And don't get me wrong, it's great, it's exciting, it keeps us invested, but here's my frustration. What about the middle of the season? Those crucial months where it feels like the team is just coasting. It's almost like they're saving energy for this stretch run. I'm really curious about the mindset during that time because while we're coasting, guess who was surging? The Houston Astros. We all saw it. Everyone did. And yet we were powerless to stop it. The worst part, we could all feel this outcome coming. The Mariners are officially out of the postseason race, and now we're left to pick up the pieces. It's been a long, kind of a draining season to watch at times, and we'll have plenty of time in the offseason to dissect what went right and what went wrong, and where does the franchise go from here? The Houston Astros have won the AL West Division for the 4th straight season in a row. I don't know. This is getting really old. Does it hurt more than the other times? I think it's fair to say that this season does. And that's because the Mariners had a 10-game lead in the division earlier this season when the Astros were cheeks. They were horrible. They were a disaster. They didn't have any pitching. Everyone knew that they were going to get hot at some point. Anyone who follows baseball, especially the Astros, they could see it coming. Their pitching staff was absolutely decimated at the start of the season. And the minute they started to get healthy, everyone and their mother knew that they were going to make a run. It was never a question of if, it was when. So what really rubs salt in the wound is that they had the perfect opportunity. The Mariners had the perfect opportunity. The door was wide open, and they decided to not step through. We had to sit back and watch mistake after mistake, squandered opportunity after squandered opportunity. It felt like the Astros were almost like toying with us this season. They gave us a 10-game head start and said, okay, now we'll show you how it gets done. That's what the season feels like. It feels like watching a race where you know you've got the lead, but the guy behind you is just pacing themselves, knowing that they'll blow right past you when it matters. As fans, it's painful because we're just along for the ride. We're not the ones making these decisions. We're not the ones in the front office. We've been conditioned to believe in Jerry DePoto's process. He backs his guys, and we want to believe that this team has the right pieces. But how many times are we supposed to buy into that? Year after year, we're watching the division just slip away. This season, more than most, just feels like we've been played for fools. We had to be gluttons for punishment. We had to sit there and watch the division title slip right through our fingers. Now, I'd love to say that this season taught us something, that there's some type of silver lining, but honestly, there isn't. This is the second straight year where the Mariners just didn't do enough to control their own destiny. And to be honest for a second, even if we snuck into the playoffs, does anyone honestly think we would have had a shot at the World Series? Because I don't. The Yankees outclassed us. The Orioles outclassed us. The Detroit Tigers outclassed us. The Dodgers outclassed us. Sure, we've had competitive games, but at the end of the day, those teams, they were just better. And we have to accept that. So yeah, postseason baseball would have been nice to see, but was I excited about it? I wasn't. Not with the way that this team was constructed. At this point, it feels like we're just fighting for the sake of fighting. So congratulations to the Houston Astros for their fourth straight AL West title. Here's hoping it's the last time we say that for a long, long, long time. All right, let's talk about the star of the show lately. That's Julio Rodriguez. If there was ever a time to get hot at the plate, man, he chose the right time. Unfortunately, it didn't really pan out for us. But Julio has been nothing short of incredible in this most recent road trip. Between the 12th and the 24th of September, he played 12 games. He hit .421. He racked up 24 hits, launched 5 home runs, and drove in 16 ribbies and crossed the plate 11 times himself. And it wasn't just any regular stretch of games. It came at the time when the Mariners needed every bit of production from him, and he did the best he could to keep them in the playoff race. Now let's dig a little deeper. Julio's consistency throughout this trip was a real standout. In series against teams like the Texas Rangers or the Houston Astros, those aren't easy teams to get by, and he was dominating. There were multiple games where he put together 3-4 hit games. He delivered in big moments. Against Texas, he shined brighter than the damn state. He knocked in several ribbies and really came through for the team. What's more impressive is how Julio continues to develop. He's been working very closely with Edgar Martinez, and it's starting to show. We're seeing him hit for power. We're seeing him make smart contact at the plate. He's being selective at the plate. His approach has matured, and he's showing that he can adapt to whatever pitchers are throwing his way. And that's been the key to his recent success. When you're putting the ball in play, like Julio is, he's mixing in line drives, homers, and finding gaps. You're not just a power hitter. You're a complete hitter. So kudos to Julio Rodriguez. This recent surge is exactly what we're looking for and what we can only hope he continues to develop during this offseason. Now, I've got to tell you all, the next moment I want to talk about, it was straight up goosebumps material for me. And if you were watching the Mariners take on the Astros this past Wednesday, then you probably know exactly what I'm getting ready to talk about. Julio Rodriguez at the plate in the top of the ninth, facing off against Hector Neris. Get your popcorn ready. This wasn't just any at-bat. This was personal. So let me take you back to last year. If you remember, Neris struck out Julio and then taunted him, which caused a bit of a stir. The word on the street is that Neris may have even used a homophobic slur in their language during that exchange. Now, I'm not here to confirm or deny what was said, but something was definitely uttered, and it hit Julio hard. In an interview afterwards, he mentioned how he thought that he and Neris were good friends, but after that moment, he realized that wasn't the case. He made it clear whatever they had before was gone. Fast forward to Wednesday night, these two are facing off again, and I'm glued to the screen. I don't know about anyone else who's listening here, but all I wanted for Julio was to get a hit just to show Neris what's up. No taunting, no trash talk, just let his bat do the talking. And as the count went to 3-2, you could feel the tension, and then boom. Julio launches a 2-run homer. That moment right there, that was redemption for me. And the best part was Julio didn't even make a big scene. No revenge taunts, no theatrics. He just smiled, rounded the bases, and celebrated with his teammates. It was pure class, pure professionalism. He let the home run do the talking, and in my opinion, that's the best kind of payback you can ask for. Revenge served cold and sweet in the most professional way possible. And that's why we love sports, right? It gives us these moments of redemption, moments where the good guys win, not just on the scoreboard, but in how they carry themselves. And I think for Julio, this was the perfect way to close that chapter with Neris. It's a reminder that sometimes the best revenge is just staying true to yourself, staying classy, and letting your skills speak louder than anything else. Alright, so this one's going to be fun. Jorge Polanco. Because I got some things to say about this guy, and this comes almost in the same breath as Julio, because we praise Julio, and Jorge deserves some praise too, but I've got some things to say here. First of all, welcome to Seattle, Jorge Polanco. It feels like we've been looking for you all season. And don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled about this recent surge, but let's just be honest, there's frustration here too. The late season breakout, where's that been? Where's that come from? And I don't mean to sound sarcastic when I say this, but there are legitimate concerns when it comes to Polanco finally finding his rhythm when the season is essentially over. And I get it. Sometimes it takes time for players to settle into a new team before they find their stride, but let's just be real, it took Polanco forever to start playing like this. It took him forever to start playing loose. We've been waiting for this version of Polanco all season. He was absolutely lights out on this road trip, especially against the Astros. He went 6 for 12 at the plate. This past Tuesday, he had a 4-hit game, hit a homer, drove in 2 runs, scored one himself. That's the kind of production we were hoping for when we acquired him. Over his last 10 road games, he's been delivering multiple extra base hit games and a consistent offensive output. Had Polanco been hitting like this for more of the season, I honestly think we could be looking at a very different Mariners team right now. But to say this has been a down year for him, that is the understatement of the century. His struggles have been apparent, and I want to say that I'm not entirely sure that this is all of his fault. When you dig into the numbers, especially his home and away splits, it's pretty telling. 56 games at home, Polanco's batting .194, 7 home runs, and 17 ribbies. On the road, .233, 9 homers, 28 ribbies. That is a significant difference, and it highlights a broader issue we've seen for years with the Mariners hitting at T-Mobile Park. And this is just the beginning of what's going to be a long offseason, dissecting splits like these for the entire roster. T-Mobile Park is notorious for being a tough place to hit. It's a beast. And there's been talks about addressing the batter's eye situation. But here's the thing. I'm concerned about what that might do to our pitching. So if we're not going to make changes to the park, we need to be more intentional about who we acquire. Time and time again, we've brought in solid veterans who come to Seattle only to see their numbers tank. Is it any wonder why hitters are reluctant to come play here? When I look at Jorge Polanco's season as a whole, it begs the question, why would he want to stay in Seattle? Personally, I'd give him another shot if we address the batter's eye issue, but I still believe in if we do change the batter's eye, I believe in what he can bring to the team. But if we're not going to change anything about T-Mobile Park, I'd seriously consider trading him or buying out his contract, which might be worth it at the end of the day. Now, that's a conversation we'll break down another time, but for now, we can't ignore the fact that Jorge Polanco had an incredible road trip to close out the season. It's just unfortunate that it's yet another sign of things coming together too late. All right, before we wrap up here, let's talk about what's on the horizon. If you've been following Keep It Electric since last season, you might remember that after the Mariners missed the playoffs, I took some time off, basically a long break, only dropping in with a few episodes here and there. This year, I'm really happy to say that that's not happening. I'm thrilled to tell you that we're going to keep the conversation going, bringing you weekly episodes throughout the entire offseason. There's just too much happening, too much to discuss, and I want to be there to cover it all. First of all, we've got to talk about some key coaching and player decisions. Will Edgar Martinez stay on as the Mariners hitting coach? His agreement is only good for 2024. He is saying that he's enjoying it, but there is uncertainty there. And that's really just the start. Several players have club options and potential buyouts looming this season. Jorge Polanco, who we just talked about, he's one of those names we'll be keeping an eye on. And let's not forget about the salary changes. Julio Rodriguez is set to get an $8 million pay bump in his long-term deal. Kirby and Riley are entering arbitration, which is always going to be a financial juggling act. Randy Arozarena is in his final year of arbitration and due for a raise, and Logan Gilbert's price tag is going to start to rise too. Then there's the question of Mitch Haniger and Mitch Garver, both still under contract, costing nearly $28 million combined. So how the Mariners handle these financial decisions could give us a clue as to what kind of team they're going to be building towards next year. Are we looking at a team ready to push for a postseason run, or are we possibly heading into a season of retooling, maybe even rebuilding with some younger prospects? So yeah, there's no days off this offseason. Instead, we'll dive into it all. The moves, the contracts, the decisions. There's going to be plenty to dissect and analyze. We'll also be doing player performance reviews, talking about what went right, what went wrong, and most importantly, who's poised to take the next step forward. This offseason could be one of the most crucial in determining whether the Mariners are built to contend or whether we're in for an even longer wait. Either way, I'll be here to break it all down week after week. So thanks again for tuning in for Keep It Electric, and I can't wait to share all my thoughts with you as we head into an exciting offseason. Until next time, keep it electric, and as always, go Mariners!